The protagonist Wang Hao travels through the world of tomb raiding and gains the golden finger to achieve the rapid fame of the Qinglong bloodline in the industry. Wang Hao awkwardly said, "I am an explorer, not a tomb thief." "Don't talk nonsense. Tomb raiding colleague. What do you say about your teammates Hu Bayi, Yang Xueli, and Wang Pangzi, who are all trying to steal gold? Are Zhang Yingchuan, Xie Lingwanye, Black Blind, Blue Robed Tibetan, Sima Hui, Luo Dague, and Bai Shengli among your people?" Wang Haoqiang argued. They are all members of my exploration team. Don't misunderstand, everyone. Tomb raiding colleague. Good. What do you say about Zhang Qilin, Zhang Haike, Zhang Rishan, Zhang Haike, Zhang Haixing, Zhang Hailou, Little Zhang, Zhang Qianjun Wanma, Tuan Shou, Zhang Haiyang and other people? Wang Hao was furious. They are all members of my wife Zhang Haixing's clan. Can you manage them? Tomb raider. Okay. How do you explain Wu Naizhen, Xiao Huaye, Wang Banyue, Yin Nanfeng, and Liang Wan? Wang Hao proudly said, "They are all my disciples, young master." Do you disagree? Finally, he gave a sly smile and said, "I am an explorer. Believe it or not, I believe it anyway." Faqiu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Traverse, System, Task. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In a daze, Wang Hao was awakened by a burst of noisy arguments. Rubbing his still somewhat bewildered head, he realized that he was sitting diagonally on a slightly outdated quadrangle doorstep. Seeing 6 or 7 young people dressed in 80s Chinese clothing standing in front of a courtyard gate not far from him, surrounded by 2 young people dressed in 80s clothing, one fat and one thin, shouting something, Wang Hao became even more bewildered. Suddenly, there was a sharp pain in his brain and a surge of memories flooded into him, instantly realizing that he had actually traveled through time. Wang Hao was originally an orphan from Huagua on Earth in 2023. After coming out of an orphanage at the age of 16, he started working part-time to earn money while attending school. After several twists and turns after graduating from university, he eventually went abroad and became a mercenary. Before crossing, he was on a security mission and was unexpectedly hit by a stray bullet, so he unfortunately passed away. But he never expected that when he woke up again, his soul would penetrate into the world of ghosts turning off lights. Why are you asking him so certain that he has traveled to a world where ghosts turn off lights? It's simple, because the tenants across from his small courtyard house are Hu Bayi and Wang Fati, the 2 young people who are besieged. As for the owner of Wang Hao's current body, he also learned about it through memory. His predecessor had the same name and surname as Wang Hao. He was a few years younger than before soul piercing and was exactly 24 years younger. He was 185 years tall and had a handsome appearance without losing his masculinity. Even in the world before Wang Hao's journey, he was still handsome, but his figure was slightly thin. Both parents were researchers at the National Museum and only gave birth to their predecessors in their 30s. Due to the good talent of his predecessor, as well as the fact that his parents were both descendants of military martyrs and had a working relationship, he was sent by the government to study world history at Princeton University in the United States as soon as he was admitted to the history department of Mizuki University. Unexpectedly, just as his predecessor had just graduated and was preparing to return to China, there was bad news in China. His parents were traveling to a certain province for archaeological research due to work, but unfortunately encountered mudslides and landslides. The entire long-distance bus that the archaeological team was traveling on was buried and never survived. After his heartbroken predecessor returned to China, he managed his parents' future life with the help of colleagues and neighbors in his parents' unit. Even Hu Bayi and Wang Fati came to help. Perhaps due to a lack of previous experience and not a strong personality, for over a month, every day was filled with melancholy and pain. In the end, exhausted from exhaustion, my predecessor finally hung me up and happened to be occupied by Wang Hao's soul-piercing body. After understanding all of this, Wang Hao secretly sighed to himself that his predecessor was also a hard-working child. Although he had a smooth life in the first 24 years and had the love of his parents, he ultimately fell into such a fate. Anyway, Wang Hao still envies his predecessor. After all, those were all things he once wanted but couldn't find. At this moment, the clamor at the entrance of the courtyard across from him grew louder and louder, as if he was about to take action. Seeing Wang Pangzi's fierce and cunning expression, as well as Hu Bai's unbearable expression, Wang Hao thought to himself that this posture should be the beginning of the exquisite ancient city plot, and it should be a web drama version rather than a novel version. Otherwise, it wouldn't be the plot node where old Hu and Pangzi were ready to start as soon as they first got in touch with Dajinya. These two guys were originally my favorite characters and helped my predecessor. Do you want to help me out? Even if he knew that even if he didn't help, Big Golden Fong wouldn't do anything to them in the end. At this moment, Wang Hao suddenly heard a mechanically synthesized female voice prompt sound in the sea of consciousness. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully traversing and starting to integrate the Great Explorer system. Ding! Congratulations to the host for successfully integrating the Great Explorer system. May I ask if the host has activated the beginner gift package? Upon hearing these words, Wang Hao immediately became happy. As an old bookworm in his past life, how could he be unfamiliar with the essential golden finger system for time travel? I was an orphan in my past life without any worries, but now that I have traveled through time, I naturally take it easy. I never expected this system to be so sophisticated, and I even offered a big gift package to beginners without asking anyone. Wang Hao from Menqing naturally communicated with consciousness in his mind. Open the beginner gift pack. Ding! Congratulations to the host for opening the beginner gift package, which includes 1 bottle of Yijin Marrow Wash, all Chinese martial arts techniques, and a 10 cubic meter storage space. Please check it. Wang Hao was pleasantly surprised to see the storage space opened up. Although 99% of the protagonists in the previous life travel online article had it, it was very comfortable to have it myself, even if it was only 10 cubic meters, but there was definitely a chance to expand in the future. As for the Yijin Wash Marrow Liquid and the full range of techniques of Guoshu Xingyi Fist, that's amazing. Then he immediately checked the introduction of Yijin Marrow Washington. It can comprehensively enhance the host's strength, speed, endurance, flexibility, agility, reactive nerves, muscle, bone and visceral strength, static and dynamic vision, hearing, smell, taste, balance, coordination, and cell activity, i.e. self-healing, anti-aging, anti-toxicity. All of the above can reach the highest level of ordinary people, which is the level of world record holders. After reading the introduction, Wang Hao knew he had made a lot of money. You should know that although these attributes are just the pinnacle of ordinary people, far from the superhero wearing underwear and outerwear, they are all at the level of various world record holders. Even if he doesn't go tomb raiding in the future and uses a certain attribute for professional training to become an athlete, he is still the most amazing world champion. Even as a veteran mercenary in his past life, coupled with his rigorous training experience, he can definitely become the top mercenary king in the world. Not to mention the combination of so many top-level attributes, which has already surpassed the limits of ordinary people, it can be considered a super weakened version of Little Superman. After thinking about it, Wang Hao took out the small bottle of about 30 milliliters of Yijin Marrow Wash from the storage space without saying a word and drank it all in one gulp. In an instant, he felt incredibly warm and comfortable all over his body. The imagined intense pain and the appearance of foul odor and dirt on his body when he was reinforced did not occur at all. After a moment of strengthening, Wang Hao felt that his body had completely changed, with exaggerated improvements in all aspects of his functions and unprecedented comfort. He was no longer as weak and scholarly as before. Wang Hao, who was in a happy mood, immediately clicked in the sea of consciousness to learn all the techniques of Guoshu Xingyi Fist. In an instant, he learned all the martial arts of various forms and meanings, and it was as if he had been practicing since childhood, extremely skilled. Including performance, practice, and gameplay. The 3-body technique of pile, folding pile, and 8-character technique. Fist techniques. 5 elements fist and 12 forms fist. 5 elements chain, miscellaneous punch, 4 fists, 8 fists, 12 hong punch, entering and exiting cave, 5 elements generating, dragon tiger battle, 3-handed cannon, 5 fireworks cannon, onqing cannon, 9 rings. Weapons. Chain knife, 3 union knife, chain sword, chain stick, 3 talent knife, 3 talent sword, walking 6 swords, 6 union spear, 6 union spear, phoenix winged sharp, etc. Wang Hao, who was familiar with the knowledge of traditional Chinese medicine in the sea of his brain, was very satisfied and excitedly asked in the sea of consciousness. What is my current level of Chinese martial arts cultivation in the system? The explorer system replied, the realm of Chinese martial arts in this system is divided into bright power, dark power, hua power, and vigorous power. Currently, due to the host's physical fitness being at the limit of ordinary humans, the cultivation of Chinese martial arts has reached the peak strength of bright power. If you have any questions, the host can view the property version themselves or consult the system. After hearing this, Wang Hao decisively called for the attribute panel in the sea of consciousness, and then a virtual attribute panel flickering in pale gold appeared in front of him. Host name. Wang Hao age. 24 height. 185 centimeters identity. Master of Archaeology in Liuomi bloodline. Currently unavailable cultivation. Peak of Mingjin physical fitness. Peak of ordinary people skills. Proficient in all schools of Xingyi fist, intermediate archaeological knowledge, pre-existing, and a complete set of advanced special forces skills, pre-existing, special items. 10 cubic meters of storage space task. Not enabled. After reading the attribute version, Wang Hao was extremely satisfied. He didn't expect that not only did he bring all the special forces skills he had learned as a mercenary in his previous life, but he also inherited the archaeological knowledge of his predecessor. Just as he was satisfied with exiting the system panel, Hu Bayi, who was blocking the opposite door, had already entered the courtyard. At the same time, the consciousness sea also sounded the system prompt sound. Ding! Start the system task. Defeat all the little brothers of Dajinya, and successfully join the Ghost Lightout team. Task success. Reward all inheritances of the Faqiu heavenly official, and there will be no punishment for task failure. May I ask if the host has received the task? Wang Hao didn't expect this system task to be quite tolerant, with rewards for success and no punishment for failure, but he still asked curiously. What will happen if I don't claim the task in the system? The system replied, Host, please rest assured that this system is only generated based on the host's inner exploration needs and will not force the host to do anything. Even if the host does not claim the task, this system will not impose any punishment on you. Upon hearing these words, Wang Hao became even happier. No one wants to be forced to do things, right? Even if it's something you originally wanted to do, it's no exception. Claim the task. After thinking about it, he said in the sea of consciousness. Immediately after, Wang Hao withdrew from the sea of consciousness and looked at his watch. From discovering his time traveling, to integrating the system and strengthening his body to learning martial arts, it has only been about 5 minutes until now. Then he stood up and adapted to his strengthened body, walking towards the courtyard across from him with a wicked smile. At the same time, he shouted in a playful manner, Old Hu, fat guy, have you had guests at your house? It's so lively. Plus. Chapter 2. Without a word, hit the jackpot. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Seeing Wang Hao happily asking questions and walking into the courtyard, Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty's faces instantly changed. In their impression, Wang Hao is a weak and cultured college student. Currently, they and Dajinya are probably not good enough. They really don't want to involve Wang Hao. So Hu Bayi quickly replied, Xiao Hao, we're fine here. You've been feeling unwell lately, so go home and rest. Wang Pangzi followed closely and said, yes, Xiao Hao, you've thought too much. Don't worry, it's okay. Hurry up and go home. Wang Hao also understood their thoughts, but he was here to complete the task. How could he just go home like this? So he squeezed in from behind the Jinya and said with a smile, isn't that right, Lao Hu and Pang Gu? I heard these people cursing just now, and it seems like I need to take action. What's going on? You're really coming to our area to get a share. Upon hearing these words, the Jinya, who didn't want to make his neighbors know, suddenly turned cold before Lao Hu and the others could speak again. Yo ho! Who is this? The zipper of their pants is not properly fastened, exposing you. What are you trying to do? As soon as he finished speaking, the 5 or 6 thugs behind him immediately turned around and surrounded Wang Hao in the middle. They were all staring and talking, ready to start beating people. Hu Bayi saw this and quickly pulled Wang Hao behind him, trying to suppress his anger in his heart. My brother is the neighbor across from us, and it has nothing to do with our affairs. If there is anything, please tell us. Yes, the Jinya, don't involve irrelevant people in our affairs. What do you really want? Yo ho! The aura doesn't diminish. The Jinya stared at the jade pendant around Wang Pangzi's neck and continued speaking. I just want to know today, is it still not this thing or is it not this logic? I'm not difficult for you either, but you guys don't inquire about it. It's never been like this with me, Mr. Jean, how much money we put in and out of here. Immediately after, an old lady came out of the side room and asked if there was anything that the neighborhood committee needed to help solve. In fact, she looked at the situation and wanted to come out and help out. For a moment, the Jinya didn't speak anymore. Before Lao Hu and the others could answer, Wang Hao smiled and said. Jin Yi, right. You see, why don't we go inside and talk about something? If we really get into the neighborhood committee or even the police station, neither of us will look good, right? After hearing this, Lao Hu and Fat Man nodded and directly instructed the two of them to sign for De Jinya to enter the room to talk. De Jinya pondered for a moment before nodding to the people behind him, and then walked into the room first. Other thugs also quickly followed suit. After Wang Hao and the others who were walking at the back entered the room, they closed the door with a smile and thought to themselves. After closing the door, start fighting, otherwise they won't be able to start fighting when both sides chat. Touch. With the sound of the door closing not too loud or too small, before everyone could react, Wang Hao rushed to De Jinya in an instant. With a heartfelt kick, he kicked Xiao Huaye and landed on Wang Fatty's bed. Then he turned around and jumped up, his legs flying in the air, hitting the heads of 2 thugs. The 2 guys, who looked like wooden stakes, were kicked straight and fell to the ground, fainting. At this point, Old Hu and Fatty had already realized that they had already started fighting, regardless of whether they were guilty or not. They were afraid that Wang Hao, a weak scholar, would suffer, so they planned to take action together to defeat these few people first. The remaining 3 thugs also reacted, one kicked Wang Hao who had just landed, one punched him, and the last one drew a dagger from behind his waist, intending to kill him. Wang Hao, who can strengthen his body with Yi-Jin Shi Marrow liquid, and has the peak strength of Ming-Jin, Xing Yi Quan, and Special Forces fighting skills, wouldn't give them a chance. I saw him turn around and punch him half a step, then knock down the thug who kicked him, and then strike another thug with a horizontal punch. When the last thug wielding a knife approached, Wang Hao used a Special Forces move to capture and remove the dagger, and with a strike from his right hand, he hit the opponent's forehead. The thug's eyes fainted in an instant. The entire hands-on process is only 5 seconds, clean and without any delay. Until then, Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty finally arrived with fists, but the battle had already ended, and the two could only stare at Wang Hao speechless. At this moment, In this small room, apart from the 5 thugs who had been knocked unconscious on the ground, all they could hear were the awkward and shocked breathing of old Hu and Fat Man, as well as Big Golden Fong lying on the almost collapsed bed, rubbing his stomach pain and being scared to death. At this scene, Wang Hao shook his head in a funny way, then picked up all the 5 fainted gangsters and threw them into the corner of the wall. Then he pulled old Hu and Fat Man to let them sit on the chair and drink water slowly. Afterwards, he picked up a cigarette box on the table that he didn't know was either an old man or a fat man, took out a cigarette, and lit it. He leisurely took a sip before saying to Dajinya. "Jin Yi, right. You see, it's not good now. My 2 brothers are sitting quietly, and you're lying down to rest. And your brothers are also sleeping soundly now. Isn't it good for everyone to have a harmonious atmosphere now? I heard from you before that there seems to be some conflict with our 2 brothers. Can we talk about it now?" Old Hu and the chubby guy had already woken up from the shock, but were almost laughed out of laughter by Wang Hao's words. At this moment, Dajinya's heart was filled with tears. He had been beaten up and his 5 subordinates were also beaten to death. However, the other party's indifferent words were the most extreme insult to him. The most important thing is that the entire process didn't take 5 seconds, it's too shameful and scary. It's not easy for people to have big golden teeth under the eaves, they just said with a cold expression. Today, I was unlucky to be considered as the Golden Lord. I didn't expect you to be so skilled, but I'm unlucky. But there's one thing, I wonder if my brothers' lives are in danger. As long as you can spare me and my brothers today, just draw a picture and I will definitely do it. But according to the rules of the martial arts world, we have settled this dispute today. Don't blame Mr. Jin for finding a place in the future. Chapter 3. Using the eternal law to solve subsequent problems. Startled. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Upon hearing that Dajinya wanted revenge, Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty suddenly became uneasy. Because the cause of the incident was Wang Pangzi, and he had a good neighbor relationship with Wang Hao for several years, and this guy was already a loyal owner. So he quickly said angrily, "Dajinya, this matter is up to me today. Whatever you want, come at me and don't trouble my brother." Not bad, both Fatty and I are nearly 10 years older than Xiao Hao. They are his brothers, and he is also helping us. Mr. Jin, please come and draw a line, and we will continue. After listening to the 3 of them, Wang Hao was very pleased. Dajinya didn't have the same bottom line as in the novel version, at least he knew how to take care of the safety of his subordinates. Old Hu, like in the novel version, is a good person but not a bad one, a person with clear right and wrong. As for Wang Pangzi's impression on him, it is better than in the novel and online drama versions. After all, he helped Wang Hao's predecessor manage his parents' funeral due to his neighbor's relationship, and now he is brave enough to take responsibility and protect himself, which has warmed Wang Hao's heart, which has always been somewhat dark in his past life. Before Dajinya, Lao Hu, and Pangzi could talk again, Wang Hao took another puff of smoke before sitting on a chair to the side and saying, "Don't worry, Lao Hu and Pang Gu. Leave this matter to me to handle. If I really can't solve it, you two should take action." Turning his head, he smirked and said, "Not bad, Mr. Jin is a man. I didn't expect that in the current situation, you still remember to worry about your subordinates' brothers. They can be considered humane. Don't worry, I didn't do anything heavy. They were just knocked unconscious and will wake up soon. If I make a big move, your brothers have already gone to the Yanwang Palace to report. However, I believe what you said to draw a line and that you will retaliate against our 3 brothers in the future. After all, you antique dealers are also considered Jianhu people, and this approach is not strange. But young master, I'm not from the martial arts world, so I don't need to play with you according to the rules of the martial arts world, right?" After a brief pause, he secretly calculated in his mind at the time when Hu Bayi would return to his hometown in the web drama was exactly 84 years, and then turned to ask. Pangzi, it seems that our country only cracked down severely last year, and all sentencing is heavier. Those who stole and robbed were directly executed, not to mention those who committed serious crimes, right? Hu Bayi has just changed jobs and is not very familiar with local affairs, but Wang Pangzi is different. He has a clear background. Although I didn't know what Wang Hao meant, I nodded and replied, no, last year's crackdown was severe. Why are you asking this? Upon hearing this, Dejinya's face changed. Before he could speak, Wang Hao picked up the dagger that the last thug had dropped to the ground and said playfully. Why? Of course it's to solve our worries. I hate trouble, and the best way to solve it is to eradicate it. Although the crackdown has just passed, it's not much different. Dejinya and his team are considered to have illegally broken into residential buildings, and they are still a group of armed robbers who attempted to rob and injure people. The most important thing is that the three of us are not only witnesses, but also the aunt from the neighborhood committee outside just now can help testify. I estimate that according to the current national policy of combining multiple crimes with punishment, it's impossible to give each of Jinyi and his brothers a piece of peanuts as a gift. In this way, our troubles will be solved once and for all. After speaking, Wang Hao continued to leisurely smoke. After listening to him finish speaking, Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty's eyes widened. They never expected that Wang Hao, a weak-looking college student returning to China, would be such a solution. It's really so cruel. As for Dejinya, who had already sat up, his eyes were white and his head was sweating. He was breathing fast and took out the asthma spray from his pocket to give medicine. After calming down for a while, he finally cried out with a crying voice, "Not so much. Not so much. Why so much? This young master, Dejinya, Wang Fatty, and the other brother, just had some unpleasant conflicts over a piece of ancient jade. And according to our industry's rules, if we don't regret taking action, it's true that they both broke the rules. Today, I came to find them with my brothers just to follow the rules, and at best, it was just a lesson to beat them up. Besides, just now it was you, young master. As soon as you took action, our brothers were all relieved in an instant. You three didn't suffer any losses, how could you take our lives?" After speaking, he burst into tears of grievance, completely losing the power of Mr. Jin from Pan Jiayuan before entering the door. Seeing the funny scene, Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty softened a bit. After all, it was just a matter of ancient jade, and they didn't suffer any losses. Now that the Jin Fang has softened, there is no need to risk 6 lives for him because of this matter. So Hu Bayi said, "Xiao Hao, it's not a big deal, and you've taught them a lesson. Let's expose it now. There's no need to kill them. Yeah, Xiao Hao, the jade pendant Lao Hu also helped me redeem it, and we also beat up the people. I think we should let them go. Don't make things worse." Wang Hao had no intention of taking the lives of Dejinya and his companions, but he said those words because of his dark and ruthless personality in his past life, as well as his desire to persuade Dejinya to plan for the future. After nodding, Wang Hao said, "Okay, for the sake of Lao Hu and Pang Gu, today's matter has been exposed like this, but what I said is in the head. My skill, Mr. Jin, you just saw me. My name is Wang Hao, and now my parents are both dead and alone, but I don't have any worries." Immediately pointing to Lao Hu, he said, "This is Hu Bayi. He is a newly transferred reconnaissance platoon leader on the front line of the self-defense counterattack war. He was forced to switch jobs on the front line because he killed prisoners, and the enemy's life on hand should have risen in double digits." Then he pointed to Wang Pangzi and said, "You should be the most familiar with him. Wang Pangzi is the weakest among the three of us, but he is also a stubborn master who has been in the military district since childhood. He has great strength and the ability to fight in groups. The most important thing is that he, like me, is also carefree from his parents' death. So, Master Jin, although we have exposed this matter today, if you want to wait for the situation to settle for a while before seeking revenge, you need to think carefully. Upon hearing this, the Jinya's heart turned blue with regret. He never expected that he would encounter such 3 living Yen kings in this matter today. Who should he find to reason with? Immediately, he nodded and responded, Prince, Hu, and Fat, thank you all for raising your hand. This matter has been exposed today, and I, the Jinya, will never look for any further trouble. We can't be considered strangers either. Today at noon, as the host, I will invite you 3 to have a hot pot of lamb. You must appreciate it. Hu Bayi and Wang Pangzi instinctively looked at Wang Hao and asked him to make a decision. I didn't expect that because I messed up the plot, the Jinya had not yet seen Lao Hu's compass and would ask for a polite friendship. Wang Hao smiled and said, Panga, could you please use cold water to wake up those brothers at the bottom of the wall? Wang Pangzi said nothing and agreed to go straight to work. Subsequently, Wang Hao continued, since Mr. Jin has given face, our brothers will naturally not be impolite. So, after those brothers wake up, Jin Yi, you can ask them to wait outside and show Jin Yi some objects. I think you will be interested. Chapter 4. Big Golden Teeth Hook, Task in Progress. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In no time, Wang Pangzi woke up those thugs with cold water, but they still looked dizzy with extreme fear. The Jinya waved his hand and asked them to wait outside the door, then turned to look at Wang Hao in confusion. Prince, I don't know what the object you're referring to is. Can you please open my eyes to Lao Jin now? Wang Hao, Hu Bayi, and Wang Fatty laughed immediately upon hearing this. When we first met earlier, he called himself Mr. Jin. After being cleaned up by Wang Hao, he called himself the Jinya, and now he calls himself Lao Jin in order to get closer to each other. It has to be said that the Jinya does have a few brushes in his interpersonal skills. Hu Bayi and his companions were too embarrassed to say anything more, but instead asked in confusion, Xiao, what exactly do you want to show Mr. Jin? Wang Hao said speechlessly, Jin Yi, please don't call me Wang Yi. Those who don't know think I'm a descendant of the Qing dynasty, it's too embarrassing. The Jinya laughed and said, okay, I won't call you Prince, but you are a person with real abilities. Since you are called Wang Hao, I will call you Prince in the future. Do you think so? If you're wandering around with the capital city, there's no one to call you that. Anyway, you can call it whatever you like. After speaking, Wang Hao turned his head and said, Old Hu, take out the treasure that your ancestor uploaded and give it to Lord Jin for his long eyes. The reason why he said this is because his predecessor, Hu Bayi and Wang Pangzi, helped him with his parents in his later life. He was extremely idle and bored chatting with him. He had talked about family books and compasses, so he was not afraid to say so abruptly. Xiao, are you talking about a book or a compass? Hu Bayi asked in confusion. Compass. Wang Hao nodded and answered. Although puzzled, Hu Bayi still took out a palm-sized, antique-shaped circular bronze compass from his marching backpack and casually handed it to the Jinya for questioning. Xiao, why did you ask me to bring this thing out? Let's talk about it first. This is a treasure passed down from my family and cannot be sold. Wang Pangzi also asked, Xiao, what are you really doing? Wang Hao just smiled and didn't say a word, but the Jinya said excitedly, holding a compass in his hand as if he had been struck by lightning. Compass. The 8 trigrams of the Book of Changes, Feng Shui positioning. I said Howie. If I had known that Hu Yi was in this industry, where could there have been such an incident just now? Tell me early when you arrive. Seeing the Jinya so excited, Wang Pangzi asked in confusion, I said Jin Yi, what exactly do you mean? What exactly is Lao Hu, this thing called, Luo what plate? As for you. Hu Bayi was surprised and asked, Jin Yi, do you know my compass? Wang Hao smiled and said, if Mr. Jin doesn't know this thing, I won't let you take it out, old Hu. Not bad. Not bad. Lao Jin, I do know this thing. This is a compass used in Feng Shui and Kanyu. Since this is your property, I think you must be an expert in feng shui and kanyu, right? Oh, that's what happened. But Lao Hu, what exactly is this feng shui kanyu? Hu Bayi ignored the fat man and nodded humbly. This compass was uploaded by my ancestors. Since Xiao Hao asked me to take it out, I'm not afraid to tell you. Although I'm not very skilled in learning, I still know a little bit about it. It's done. Originally, I was going to invite the three of you to have a meal and have a good chat this afternoon, but I didn't expect to have an unexpected joy. Okay, I'll take a few of my subordinates back first. At noon, I'll be at Dongmeshan Hot Pot Restaurant, waiting for the three gentlemen to come. Seeing Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty looking at him again, Wang Hao smiled and nodded. Okay. Mr. Jean, please make sure the three of us arrive on time for the appointment. That's settled. After speaking, the Jinya and the three of them hugged each other with fists, turned around, and walked out of the courtyard with his subordinates. Until then, some Wang Fatty, who had not yet reacted, said in a daze. Xiao Hao, thank you very much for your help today. I never expected that your kids' skills would be so impressive. And your coping strategies today are simply overshadowed, they're so ruthless. Hu Bayi also gratefully said, Fatty man is right. Thank you very much for this matter today, Xiao Hao. Wang Hao smiled and waved his hand, saying, Pang Gu, Lao Hu, you're welcome. Not to mention your friendship of helping me handle my parents' affairs, even if my neighbors see you in trouble, I can't ignore it. Then he began to deceive. After all, he couldn't say that he was a soul piercing through, occupying the body of his predecessor. Actually, my skills have always been good, but now in a rule of law society, my parents hope that I can focus on my studies, so I haven't shown any confidence. Upon hearing him mention his deceased parents, in order not to make Wang Hao sad, Hu Bayi and the others did not ask further, but instead asked. Xiao Hao, what do you want the Jinya to see my compass for? Wang Hao smiled and said, this is also a small idea for me. Today, I came across the Jinya, an antique expert from Panjiayuan. In addition, my family background and major, as well as my previous experiences with you and Pang Gu, I took the liberty of doing so. Please don't take it amiss, Lao Hu. Wang Pangzi chuckled and said, look at what you're saying, we're both brothers and neighbors. It's just to show the Jinya what the compass can do. Old Hu won't mind. Hu Bayi nodded in agreement and said, don't think too much about it. Immediately, Wang Hao said, Lao Hu and Pang Gu, I'll go home and change into clothes and wash up. You two should also tidy up the room before changing into clothes. Later, the three of us will go to the Jinyi banquet. Seeing Old Hu and Fat Man nodding in agreement, Wang Hao turned around and left the room before taking a few steps back to his own courtyard. After entering the house, I washed my face, brushed my teeth, and took off all my clothes. I gave my whole body a good scrub, then changed into shorts and walked to the full-body mirror to take a good look at my new body. At a height of 185 centimeters, his muscles are streamlined, exceptionally full and powerful, but they are completely different from those of bodybuilders. Wide shoulders and deep back, with ape arms, B waist, and long legs, it's like a walking clothes rack. A head of medium short hair with a length of 3 or 7, although somewhat outdated in this era, cannot conceal his handsome and resolute face in the slightest. The most important thing is to match Wang Hao's current temperament, which is completely different from his predecessor, although his appearance has not changed. After carefully examining his current appearance, Wang Hao nodded in satisfaction, then dug out a set of matching white sportswear and a black half-sleeve T-shirt that his predecessor had bought from abroad and put them on. He also found socks and the same pair of matching sneakers and went out to find Old Hu and the chubby guy. As for why he doesn't wear autumn clothes and pants, will it be cold? With his far superior physical fitness and ancient martial arts cultivation, are you joking? Around noon after meeting Old Hu and Fat Man, Wang Hao and his companions arrived at Dongmeshan Hot Pot Restaurant along the way. As soon as he entered the door, the Jinya, who had been waiting for a long time, stood up and warmly greeted him. "Yo! Hu Yi, Hao Yi, and Pang Yi, you three are here. Sit down, sit down, sit down." After speaking, he quickly raised his hand and led the three people into their seats. Watching the Jinya so enthusiastic, old Hu and Fatty didn't care at all. Their attitudes were completely different from those in the online drama, and Wang Hao not only smiled but also shook his head. After all, in the online drama, Lao Hu and his wife spent money to avoid disasters, and because the Jinya suddenly discovered a compass, they were able to attend the appointment in confusion. Although they didn't know the purpose of the Jinya this time, with Wang Hao's previous actions, they are now very confident in their hearts. Wang Hao sat down and smiled. "Don't be busy, Mr. Jin. You don't need to be polite. Since the three of us have come with goodwill and sincerity, let's have a good chat." Chapter 5. Eating lamb and talking about tomb robbery. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Jinya nodded with a smile and said, "Hao Yi is right. Everything that happened this morning has passed, and now all three of you have given me face to attend the appointment. I am honored, Lao Jin. Before we talk, let me introduce myself first. My name is Jin Yi, and Pan Jiayuan is engaged in antique business. My father was a folk dueling artist in his early years, and later he had the Nationalist Party recruit Zhuang Ding as a soldier. Later, they rebelled and came to our side, and later on, their legs were frozen and left with a lifelong disability on the battlefield of the Northern Court. Afterwards, I followed my father back to the capital and started doing some antique and toy business here." Speaking of which, the Jinya picked up his teacup and took a sip before continuing to laugh. "If it weren't for Haoyi's squeaking today, I would have really taken a blind eye. I didn't expect that you, Mr. Hu, are actually a feng shui master with a deep family background. I guess Mr. Hu also has some understanding of our profession, right?" That feng shui master, the Jinya said it with a heavy accent. Not to mention Wang Hao and Hu Bayi, even the most heartless Wang Fatty could hear his meaning. Hu Bayi never expected that as soon as the Jinya spoke, he would reveal his ancestors who had been involved in the fight, let alone that the other party would explore his own secrets. However, when he thought about the situation between the two sides, he also replied with confidence. "When your father fought back, he didn't find a big zongzi." The Jinya suddenly laughed and said, "Yo! You're an expert." One side of Wang Pangzi asked, "What zongzi?" Before Big Gold Teeth could answer, Wang Hao said with a smile, "Zongzi is a code word in the tomb robber's shop, which refers to the well-preserved corpse in the tomb. Big zongzi means big trouble." Wang Kaixian nodded, and Hu Bayi didn't think he knew anything unexpected about it. On the contrary, the Jinya unexpectedly asked, "Yo! I didn't expect Haoyi to understand these things too." Wang Pangzi, who has the best relationship with Wang Hao, said to Rongyan, "Of course. Xiao Hao's parents are both senior researchers at the National Museum and have been nurtured since childhood. Besides, he himself is also a great talent. He was originally admitted to the history department of Shuemu University, and later sent by the government to study world history at the University of Pewharton in the United States. It's a big deal." After finishing speaking, he picked up the teacup and took a sip. Those who didn't know thought he was drinking, full of momentum. But he couldn't stand it for 3 seconds and was scalded by the very hot cup of tea, coughing uncontrollably. Upon seeing this scene, Wang Hao and Hu Bayi were speechless, and then burst into laughter. The Jinya, who knows something, quickly gave Wang Pangzi a cup of cold boiled water to relieve his scalding, and then he looked at Wang Hao in shock. "How did you say that?" "Old Jin, I have a blind eye to gold inlaid with jade. I didn't expect that you, Haoyi, are still an expert in our industry." Wang Hao asked himself, with the knowledge he inherited from his predecessor and his understanding of the world of tomb raiding, as well as the fact that he will receive the inheritance of Faqiu after completing the task of joining the Iron Triangle of tomb raiding, he is still very confident. So he smiled and said, "Mr. Jin, you're welcome. Fatty is right. I did learn history and archaeology from my parents since I was young, and after going to college, I was sent by the government to Princeton University in the United States to focus on world history. Before my parents' death, I just obtained a master's degree in history. Now, I can barely be considered as having more written knowledge than practical experience, but I can't afford to be a master. Although he said this humbly, the Jin Fong wouldn't take it seriously. He smiled and said, "Howie, you are humble. You were raised by your parents at the National Museum from a young age. When you grew up, you first studied at Shuemu University, and then were sent abroad by the government. How could such knowledge be inferior? Even if you only have academic knowledge and engage in a duel with antiques, there are some practical differences, but they are definitely not simple characters. The most important thing is that I, Lao Jin, have witnessed your kung fu with my own eyes. With this skill, I am definitely a great talent." Wang Hao smiled calmly and didn't answer. De Jinya quickly opened his mouth and pointed to his own golden tooth, saying, "You three gentlemen, have you seen my golden tooth?" Without waiting for him to finish speaking, Wang Hao, who had already known the plot and had his existing archaeological knowledge to scrutinize it for a moment, smiled. "Well, it's a good Qianming enamel gold. It's just broken from Zhongzi and inserted into your own mouth. You are not an ordinary person, Mr. Jin." After hearing this, De Jinya gave a thumbs up and said, "Are you saying you're not a master? Howie, you don't have anyone else's eye, just take a quick look." Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty admitted when they saw De Jinya, and their faces were both very strange because they had similar thoughts to Wang Hao. They both felt that inserting the dead person's golden teeth into the living person's mouth was a bit awkward, and for a moment, the atmosphere at the table became somewhat awkward. Wang Hao laughed and pointed to the copper hot pot, shouting, "I said everyone, don't talk for now. This pot has been boiling for a while, let's eat it first, okay?" De Jinya quickly picked up chopsticks and beckoned everyone to eat. After several people ate several plates of mutton and drank some baijiu, the atmosphere became warm again. At this moment, De Jinya started talking again and said, "Before my father was caught as a strong soldier, he learned from a skilled wrestler surnamed Kai on the other side of Nanhu. He knows a lot about this tomb digger. They mainly rely on their noses to smell, and in the 12th year of the Republic of China, with the Luoyang shovel, they no longer need to smell through their noses, but rely on their eyes to see. By using the soil brought up by the Luoyang shovel, you can know what is underground." Wang Pangzi is currently busy eating meat, so he didn't listen carefully. Hu Bayi listened carefully while eating lamb. Wang Hao said nonchalantly, "Not bad, if there are porcelain, wood, cloth, gold, silver, copper, iron, tin, mercury, lead, including rammed earth bricks and tiles in the soil brought up by this shovel, you can know the era of the underground tomb, including the architectural structure inside." At this moment, Hu Bayi and Wang Pangzi had already stopped their chopsticks and listened attentively to Wang Hao's deception. De Jinya exclaimed in admiration, "Howie is truly extraordinary. When it comes to fighting, you are truly clear-minded." Later, he said with a hint of desolation, "It's a pity that the craft of Wen-tu has been lost in my area. My father's legs and feet are not agile, and I have congenital asthma. So I decided to rely on this insight to do the antique business." Hu Bayi and Fatty were both touched by what De Jinya said, and they both picked up their wine glasses and touched him. But Wang Hao knew that this was De Jinya's plan to lead the three of them to the next tomb for a fight. Although it was true, it was also a trick. After a moment, Hu Bayi put down his glass and said, "I've heard from the older generation earlier about the matter of tipping over. A true expert is someone who doesn't use an iron swab or Luoyang shovel." Upon hearing these words, Wang Hao chuckled inwardly. Here we are, the time for old Hu to pretend to be 13 is about to begin. Chapter 6. Get out of the way, young master is going to pretend to be 13. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As expected, Hu Bayi continued, those who have the ability will know at your place whether there is an ancient tomb underground, where it is buried, and what structure it is at a glance. This is called Fenjin Dingxue. That is to say, wherever feng shui is excellent, there must be a big tomb. The person buried inside is not an ordinary person, and the tomb is full of treasures. People who truly have great abilities are indeed disdainful of things like luoyang shovels. Watching Hu Bayi cover up half of his tone and pretend to be invisibly 13, Wang Hao's heart was almost filled with laughter, because De Jinya and Wang Pangzi were already being fooled by him and limped. Hu Yi, do you also have research on this Jin Ding acupoint? De Jinya stared and asked. Hu Bayi pretended to be profound and humble, saying, I have done some research. I admire it. I admire it. De Jinya looked at Hu Bayi and then turned to look at Wang Hao, who was usually calm and composed as if eating boiled lamb. If the three gentlemen don't mind, let's take a look at me after we finish our meal later. Wang Hao saw that the situation was developing smoothly, so he took the lead and said, okay. Hu Bayi and Wang Fadi nodded in agreement when they saw that he had agreed. After dinner, the three of them followed De Jinya all the way to his shop in Panjiayuan. Opening the door, De Jinya invited the three of them into the room and said, sit whatever you want, sit whatever you want. After sitting down, Wang Hao casually took out a box of cigarettes he had just bought on the way from his pocket and lit one. He gestured for old Hu and Fat Man to take it themselves, and then carefully scrutinized it. It's funny to say that in reality, Hu Bayi, Wang Pangzi, and even De Jinya's appearance is somewhat different from the characters in the online drama, closer to the characters in the novel version. There is also a big gap between the furnishings in De Jinya's store and those in online dramas. It seems that we cannot simply use online dramas or novels to consider the situation in the real world. After serving hot tea to the three, De Jinya took out his pants pocket and walked towards a standing cabinet by the wall, saying, I'm giving you something. As expected, De Jinya took out a square brocade box from the cabinet, took out 3 yellow brocade bags from inside, and placed them in the hands of the three of them. Hu Yi, Hao Yi, and Pang Yi, please take a look. After finishing speaking, he sat on the nearby Grand Tutor's chair with a proud expression on his face. Wang Hao was speechless in his heart. In the original plot, it was old Hu and the other two, and De Jinya prepared 2 fake gold tokens. Now that he has added himself, De Jinya has actually produced 3 fake products. Hu Bayi looked solemnly at the fake gold medal in his hand without saying a word, while Wang Pangzi asked in a low voice. Lao Hu, Xiao Hao, what is this thing? Hu Bayi replied in a deep voice, touching the gold token dot. De Jinya quickly followed suit and said, Hu Yi is right, it's a touch of gold talisman. At that time, Cao Cao had an army under his command, which specialized in using the treasures obtained from digging graves to pay for their troops. In this army, everyone wears a gold medal and is officially awarded the title of Gold Medal Colonel. Later on, it came in that if there is a consensus in the field of fighting, it is called Majin Xiaowei. After speaking, De Jinya stood up and walked up to Hu Bayi, saying, Master Hu, you said you have the ability to fix the acupoint with this identity. Hao Yi has martial arts and archaeological knowledge, and Fat Yi is also a loyal hero. It would be a pity if you three didn't become the touching gold colonel. Hu Bayi smiled and sat on the sofa, saying, actually, I don't have much experience with the matter of flipping. It's all from a 16-character yin-yang feng shui secret book passed down from my grandparents. To be honest, his elderly family did indeed serve as a Jinxiawei back then. As a result, I almost lost my life when I met a big Zongzi, so I'm not going to do such immoral things as fighting back. After speaking, he put the fake goods in his hand on the coffee table. De Jinya saw the situation and hurriedly wanted to continue persuading, while Wang Hao, who wanted to quickly complete the character's inheritance of Faqiu, spoke up. Since your ancestors used to be the gold-touching colonel in your family, you can also be considered an inheritor, old Hu. Didn't you realize that the gold-touching talisman given to us three by Jinyi was fake? After jokingly speaking these words, Wang Hao extinguished the burnt cigarette butt and put it back into the ashtray on the table, looking at the three of them with a playful expression. At the same time, Hu Bayi, Wang Pangzi, and De Jinya also changed their expressions. De Jinya felt embarrassed because that guy had tricked the three of them into being exposed on the spot, while Hu Bayi and Wang Fati looked at Jinyi incredulously and asked, "What? Is this golden talisman fake?" De Jinya was asked for a moment without knowing how to answer, and finally looked awkwardly at Wang Hao to ask. "Howie, how did you know that my golden talisman was a counterfeit?" Seeing that the timing was approaching, Wang Hao didn't intend to continue grinding, so he began to deceive with all his might. "Because I have a clear understanding of the secrets of the Taoist sect you mentioned, and I also know the approximate whereabouts of the only 3 real gold tokens left in this world, so of course, what you gave us, Mr. Jin, is fake." Upon hearing these words, not only did De Jinya lose his composure, but even Hu Bayi and Wang Fati looked at him together. Hu Bayi hurriedly asked, "Xiao Hao, no. Howie, I also call you Howie. Can you tell us the secrets of this tomb raiding sect and the true whereabouts of the gold medal? I also heard some from my grandfather when I was a child." De Jinya and Wang Pangzi quickly nodded in agreement, and Wang Hao took out another cigarette to light it. He leisurely took a puff and leaned against the sofa before saying, "The founder of the gold-robbing tomb sect was King Yu of Zhou, who used a large number of people to sacrifice himself after his death. One of the martyred slaves escaped from his tomb and also took the red sand book buried with him, which was passed down to future generations. This person is the true founder of the gold-robbing sect. During the Western Han Dynasty, some people secretly dug tombs according to the method of advancing and retreating through the 8 gates mentioned in their ancestors' Dan Shaishu, and the embryonic form of the Majin Shaowei began to take shape. During the late Han Dynasty, the official title of Majin Shaowei was established, which was used by Cao Cao. Cao Cao also appointed the commander of the Faqiu Zhonglang to lead the Majin Shaowei, and the inheritance of the Majin Fu and Faqiu Yin began. At the end of the Zhou dynasty, the tomb of King Yu of Zhou and the tomb of Shang Tang were mysteriously stolen, which is the oldest recorded tomb robbery event in history. However, the name and future outcome of this extraordinary person cannot be verified. Upon hearing this, Hu Bayi and the 3 of them were all stunned. Unexpectedly, the incident of falling from the tomb could be traced back to the Shang and Zhou dynasties. De Jinya urgently asked, "And then what about Howie?" "Listen to what you mean. Besides setting up the Jin Shaowei, Cao Cao also has the Faqiu Zhonglang Jiang, who leads them. What is the difference between them?" Wang Pangzi also hurriedly asked, "Yes, where are the whereabouts of the hair mound seal and the gold-touched talisman?" Wang Hao continued without hesitation, "As I mentioned earlier, tomb raids have existed since ancient times. Tracing back to their origins, after Xiang stole Qin, throughout the 23 dynasties, there have been countless tomb raids in the world. Dynasties have changed in the world, and there are many people who dig tombs in caves like gadflies. According to their motives, techniques, and lineages, there are only 4 schools of tomb raiding: gold mining, mountain moving, and mountain unloading. The generation of Faqiu who touched gold began in the later Han dynasty, and they all have the same lineage. The secret technique of touching gold, with the word E at the forefront, was born and changed to E, and the great virtue of heaven and earth was born. After the Southern Song dynasty, the principles of the 5 elements of the Book of Changes were used to divide and fix the acupoints of gold and gold. Many people had a strong desire to stand up and benefit the world, and some formed a group of 3 or 5 people, without any inheritance of the title of master-disciple. They relied only on the principles of hair mound seal, gold-touching talisman, dragon-seeking secret, etc., with clear rules for advancing and retreating, laws for attacking and defending, and Tao for stealing. When the rooster crows and the lamp extinguishes, they do not touch gold, and theft does not deviate from the Tao. They respect ghosts and gods and stay far away. A group of mountain-moving Taoists originated in the Shuanghaishan River basin of the Peacock River in the western regions. Their ancestors were all of the same lineage and clan, often disguised as wandering alchemists to travel around the world without communicating with outsiders. They were independent and capable, with many talented individuals and scholars stealing the world's treasure trove. Some people do not know what their intentions are, and call them those who move mountains and send ancient tombs in order to seek immortality as elixirs. In fact, they have been searching for the dust beads for generations to relieve the curse of ethnic bloodline. The mountain-moving Taoist is skilled in unique mountain-moving techniques and has always kept them secret. Their generation's search for tomb raids is based on the fundamental principle of mountain-moving magic. Although mountain-moving belongs to a different type of magic, it encompasses various techniques, methods, and formulas, but it is not based on the Book of Changes as the overall outline. Therefore, its origin is completely different from that of the Feng Shui secret technique of the Golden Master. Finally, there was the unloading mountains and stealing crowds movement, which began at the end of the Han Dynasty when the peasant army raided the imperial tombs. The masses sought profits, divided the spoils, and gathered righteousness. The number of people could range from hundreds to thousands. On weekdays, they are scattered in either bandits or officials. Among the tomb robbers, those who are half officials and half bandits belong to this generation, and they have good communication with each other. There are bandits among them, who respond to every call. When encountering ancient tombs and huge graves, they gather a crowd to seek their help. His actions are reckless, with great shovels and hoes, oxen pulling horses and horses, medicinal stones and earth cannons, all using extreme force. Even the graves stolen by his generation, such as cutting mountains to make corridors, piercing stones for hiding, soil as solid as iron, and tomb walls filled with copper and gold, are all broken by external force. The three major systems of tomb raiding in the world, namely, feng shui, alchemy, and external forces, are included in the process of developing hills, exploring gold, moving mountains, and unloading mountains. In short, they can be referred to as principles, techniques, and materials, and fully encompass the three motivations of tomb raiders: helping the world, seeking medicine, and seeking wealth. The rest are all civilians' theft and scattered theft, with the flow of rooster crowing and dog stealing. The mixture of mud and sand makes it difficult to form a climate, and there is no room for further explanation. At this point, Hu Bayi and De Jinya were already surprised, and their eyes were even more reflective, except for Wang Pangzi, who asked with a bewildered expression. "Xiaohao, what did you mean by what you just said? I didn't understand your chubby brother." Chapter 7. Finalize the clamping Lama, task completed. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Watching Wang Pangzi's pitiful and helpless silly expression, Wang Hao and De Jinya couldn't help but laugh, while Hu Bayi explained it briefly to him again before understanding. De Jinya summarized, "I didn't expect it. Old Jean has always considered himself a knowledgeable expert in the industry, and I didn't expect to understand it after listening to Haoi's explanation today. It turns out that the knowledge I know about fighting is just a drop in the bucket. Shame, I'm really too ashamed." Old Hu also admired him and said, "Don't even talk about you, Mr. Jean. Even as an authentic inheritor of gold, I don't know how meticulous it is." Only Wang Fatty's concern was different, and he continued to ask, "Haoi, we have already understood the history of the Do and the four major sects you mentioned, but you haven't mentioned the whereabouts of the real Faqiu seal and the gold medal yet." After taking a sip of water, Wang Hao smiled and said, "I can't let my throat moisten and rest before I tell you all." Then continue to install. No, it's the beginning of the lecture. The gold-touching talisman is a symbol of the identity of the gold-touching kernel. It uses the sharpest claws of pangolins as raw materials, immerses them in paraffin for 40.9 days, and buries them in the underground of the Dragon Tower hundreds of meters deep to borrow the spiritual energy of the earth veins for 800 days in order to succeed. After completion, the talisman is pitch black, transparent, and incredibly hard, with a moist glow under the fire. The front end is sharp, with a cone-shaped lower end embedded with turpenoid gold thread. The silk pattern is transparent to the ground, and the talisman carries the two ancient seal characters, touch gold. Each Orthodox gold medal officer will carry a gold medal symbol. Every Orthodox Faqiu heavenly official, also known as Faqiu Zhonglang General, possesses a bronze-cast Faqiu heavenly seal, engraved with the 8 characters blessing from heavenly officials and no taboos. It is an irreplaceable divine object, claimed to be in one's hand, avoiding ghosts and gods. At this moment, Dajinya was not calm anymore. He anxiously asked, "Where are these 2 treasures now?" Wang Hao smiled slightly and continued, "As far as I know, there are only 2 Faqiu Tianyin seals, one engraved in Yin and the other engraved in Yang. There are 10 gold touch talismans in total. This is the oldest object passed down from the end of the Han dynasty. Unfortunately, in the early Ming dynasty, Liu Bowen recommended the enfeoffment ceremony to build the imperial tomb for Ming Taizu and bestowed the name Guanshan Taibao. Liu Bowen was able to escape and protect himself. But Feng Wangli proposed to Emperor Taizu of the Ming dynasty to arrest and kill the 4 groups of tomb raiders on a large scale. At that time, 7 gold medals and 1 square hair mound seal were destroyed. Now, there should be only 3 gold medals and 1 square hair mound seal left in the world. After a brief pause, Wang Hao continued, later in the Qin dynasty, during the Taiping Rebellion, Zhang Xiaobian, an adventurer at the Golden Coffin Cemetery, was appointed as a Yanzi battalion officer. Later, he followed Zhou Zongtong to pacify the western frontier, and finally withdrew his military status to form the Dongting Lake Yantuan, known as the Thief Demon. After Zhang Xiaobraid, he became the Touching Gold Colonel, and wore the 3 symbols, known as Zhang San Lianzi Zhang Senyi. Zhang Sanyi excavated the innate 8 trigrams in the ancient tomb of the Western Zhou dynasty, wrote the 16-character Yin Yang Feng Shui secret technique, and later received 4 disciples. Feitian Zhai, Jin Xuan Pan, Sun Guofu, and Tai Mo Tu. The 16-character Yin Yang Feng Shui secret technique was passed on to Sun Guofu, and the 3 gold touch talismans were passed on to the other 3 disciples. Later, Tai Motu died in the ancient tomb mechanism, Feitian Zhua became a monk, and Jean Abacus continued to rob tombs along the Yellow River without any further news. In a few more years, Li Chen took over the mountain-moving Kuei Shou Zhigu Shao as his disciple and passed on him and the 2 golden talismans of the deceased iron-grinding head to Zhigu Shao, who took them to the United States. Upon hearing this, all 3 of Dajinya were already dumbfounded. I was completely stunned by this amazing secret recipe. Wang Pangzi asked in confusion, "How, since one of the golden talismans disappeared along the Yellow River coast with the golden abacus, the other 2 have been taken overseas? What about the last hair mound seal?" Although Wang Hao knew about the hair mound seal, it would be sold to Hu Bayi by blind old Yi in the plot of General Jiuyo in the future. But since the system will reward him with all the inheritance of the hair mound, he probably is the destroyed hair mound seal. So he turned his head and asked, "How about Lao Hu, Pang Gu, and Jin Yi? I've talked so much about them. How many of you guys should see something, right? How about forming a duel?" Although I don't know why Wang Hao suddenly brought up this matter, Dajinya had this plan and quickly agreed with a smile. Wang Pangzi also wanted to agree, but felt embarrassed to leave his good brother Hu Bayi behind, so he kept blinking at him to signal his agreement. However, Hu Bayi still cannot accept the practice of digging graves and cannot make up his mind for the time being. Wang Hao smiled and directly fooled, "I'm not afraid to tell everyone that I'm the last heavenly official of Haiqiu. I have the Haiqiu seal in my hand, and my family has never cut off this inheritance. That's why I know so many secrets. I am the authentic Faqiu heavenly official. Lao Hu, you are a legitimate descendant of the Golden Master. Jin Yi has insight and connections, and Pang Gu is also a brother who puts his heart and soul into it. Therefore, it's just right for us to partner with the Lama. Besides, I heard from Pang Gu that you two have always wanted to go back to the camp in Niuxin mountain when you went to the countryside, and help those villagers get rich. The question is, do you two have this money now? And Lao Hu, the family members of your fallen comrades in the army, don't you also want to help a little? But do you have money now? Once again, in order to save Lao Hu, you were gutted out by a wild wolf. Although you didn't die, you became a vegetative female military doctor named Gemma. Now, even if you were lucky enough to be rescued, you still have to be paralyzed in bed. Aren't you still unable to let go of it? Don't you want to cure her? But do you have money? And your parents, although both of you have retirement benefits, Lao Hu, you are also in your 30s. Don't you consider supporting your parents in the future? But now that you sell cassette tapes with Fat Brother, can you make money? Hu Bayi's face turned pale when asked 4 times by Wang Hao, and beads of sweat as big as beans couldn't stop sliding down his cheeks. The Jinya, who was standing beside him, quickly spoke up and said, I said Hu Yi. Hao Yi is absolutely right. Why are you so upset? Wang Pangzi was also surprised by 4 consecutive questions. Although he did not have any comrades, family members, or life-saving benefactors to help, he did want to help the gang camp and himself, who were poor when he went to the countryside. So he advised, Old Hu, you don't have to bear the burden in your heart. There are so many gold and silver treasures in the tombs of those emperors and generals. Can you say that those good things belong to the tomb owner? Isn't it all that they scraped from the common people? Besides, we can collect it first. Have you forgotten that we recently picked up some porcelain pieces by the river in Gangang camp when we went to the countryside? Do you think those villagers' families don't have many good things? With the ability and vision of Hao, a high-ranking official, are you still afraid that we won't receive good things? Besides, don't you want to see the old branch secretary, Yan Zi, and those villagers? Hu Bayi gritted his teeth and looked at Wang Hao, saying, All right, Master Hao, this matter is settled today. Let's go to the camp at Niuxin Mountain to see if we can collect some good items and come back. If we don't have any, we'll listen to you. Although Hu Bayi was still struggling, he finally agreed, and both the Jinya and Wang Pangzi showed happy smiles. Wang Hao, on the other hand, thought to himself that there was nothing left in Gangang camp, but the tombs of Liao dynasty generals, Guangdong army fortresses, and even the tombs of Liao dynasty Empress Dowager Xiao were all targets. Just as he was about to answer, the consciousness C suddenly heard a detailed system prompt sound. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing the initial task of the system, defeating all the little brothers of Dejinya, and successfully joining the Ghost Lightout team. The host has received rewards for all the inheritance of the Faqiu Tianguan. Please check. Upon hearing the prompt, Wang Hao was extremely happy. It was not easy, and he finally completed the task and received the reward. So he gestured to Hu Bayi and the others to wait for a moment, and then said to the conscious C, check Ren reward. P.S. If you Lao Tai think this book is okay, please vote for some flowers and evaluation tickets. Chapter 8. Finalization of Faqiu Heavenly Officials and Preparation of Materials. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. As Wang Hao's consciousness entered the storage space, there was indeed a hair-mound seal inside. At the same time, there is also a book called Ling Pu, which is the dragon searching technique of Fa-Chuman, and it originates from the same lineage as the Golden Classic Secret Transmission of Touching the Golden Gate, which is the dragon searching technique. Finally, there are 2 secret books of Faqiu Finger and Bone Shrinking Technique, which are unique martial arts passed down from ancient times by Faqiu men. Without hesitation, Wang Hao clicked on Ling Pu, Fa Qiu Ji, and Jian Gu Gong to learn. After a while, he not only learned Ling Pu, but also fully mastered Faqiu Ji and Jian Gu Gong. Even the numerous knowledge and techniques of inverted combat that have been passed down by the heavenly officials of Faqiu since ancient times, as well as the unique items required for burial, have all been fully mastered. When Wang Hao opened his eyes again, his mood was extremely joyful. After all, he had only deceived everyone by being familiar with the plot and inheriting his previous archaeological knowledge. Now it's different, he's a serious Faqiu heavenly official. Just as he was about to continue talking to Hu Bayi and others, the consciousness sea sounded a system prompt sound again. Ding! Release mission. Go to Niuxin Mountain and explore the plot of all the tombs of Liao Dynasty generals. Rewards for completing tasks include Blue Dragon Bloodline, Overlord Blade, Xiang Yu Blade, and plus 10 cubic meters of storage space. No punishment for failed tasks. May I ask if the host has received the task? Looking at the rewards of Qinglong Bloodline and Bawang Blade, as well as the opportunity to expand storage space, Wang Hao claimed the task without hesitation. Just kidding, although his current physical fitness and national martial arts cultivation make him one of the few experts in the world, if he can obtain the blessing of the Qinglong Bloodline, it is estimated that even the young man Zhang Qilin is not his opponent. The Ba Wang Dao is also a treasure, and with his current knowledge of history, he immediately thought of its source. The Ba Wang Dao, also known as the Xiang Yu Dao, is said to be the sword worn by Xiang Yu, the Ba Wang of Western Chu. Later, he committed suicide in Wujiang using this knife. The King and Marquis Mackerel. Dong Zhuo, who plowed the fields, received a sword without any writing. Mountains and clouds were hidden on all sides, and he carved the king like wood. He was highly esteemed and looked up to Kai Yong, who said, "This Xiang Yu sword." Subsequently, Wang Hao spoke up and arranged, "Since the four of us have decided to collaborate with the Lama and this is our first time working together, I will share my opinion. Please listen to whether it is reasonable." Hu Bayi, Wang Pangzi, and De Jinya nodded together, letting him not worry. So Wang Hao said, "I still have some savings of about 10,000 yuan. I'll go home and collect them later. If Lao Jin's health is not good, he will stay in the capital and be responsible for providing us with logistical support, as well as the sales channels for antique artifacts in the future. I'll bring the money in a moment, and Lao Jin, you can help us three brothers purchase all the necessary supplies through your channels." De Jinya nodded and assured, "Don't worry, Howie. I'm good at this and I won't fall off the chain." Lao Hu said awkwardly, "Howie, when we go to Niuxin Mountain, Fatty and I want to bring some gifts to our fellow villagers, so we can't let you spend all the money. Later, we can also go back and put it back together. We can probably raise 1,000 or 800 yuan. Old Hu is right. You can't just let Howie pay for everything. I'll go and sell the tapes at a cheaper price later." Although an extra 1,000 or 800 yuan is not of much use, Wang Hao also knows their thoughts and character, so he did not refute or agree. Just jokingly asking, "Old Hu, fat brother, why do you two call me Howie instead of Xiao Hao?" Hu Bayi smiled and said, "In the past, we were just neighbors and friends. Although we had a good relationship, it's not too much to call you Xiao Hao, after all, we are older than you. But now that we know you are a person with great abilities and the iron chopsticks of our team, we naturally can't call you that way anymore." Wang Pangzi nodded closely and said, "Old Hu is right. In the future, we will call you Howie. Who makes you cow? But what does Lao Hu just say about iron chopsticks?" Wang Hao smiled and replied, "These are all jargon for tomb raiding. Lama means organizing a group of local masters to rob graves. Trapped llamas are divided into those who trap llamas and those who are trapped. Trapped llamas have a higher status, and tomb raiders also gather through the trapped llamas and carry out tomb raids through their means. The tomb raiders of the organization that collects llamas are called iron chopsticks and chopstick heads. In ancient times, it was called catching and fighting, and in the jargon of the Republic of China, it was called, collecting llamas. Oh, that's what it means. Wang Pangzi suddenly realized. Hu Bayi and Dajinya, who knew about these blackened spring snacks, couldn't help but nod in agreement. Immediately, Wang Hao and Hu Bayi went back to raise and withdraw money respectively. More than 2 hours later, all three of them returned to the Dajin Fang store again. Wang Pangzi said, Howie, Jinya, Lao Hu and I will go back and sell everything we can handle, and we will probably raise over 700 yuan. Hu Bayi followed suit and said, by the way, Mr. Jin, I still have a mechanical arm that my dad gave me back then. You can probably exchange it for a few hundred yuan if you help me out. Just as Dajinya was about to take it over, he was stopped by Wang Hao and said, Old Hu, please keep your watch. I have used all my savings this time, totaling 12,000 yuan, which should be enough. As for Pang Ji's 700 yuan, you two can just watch and buy something for the villagers in Gangyangzi. As for my 12,000 yuan, I will ask Mr. Jin to help us buy all the necessary supplies later. After deducting our round-trip expenses for food and drink, if there is any surplus, I will also buy gifts for the villagers for you too. Hu Bayi tried to refuse but was stopped by Wang Hao, and in the end, he only listened to his arrangements. Immediately, Wang Hao threw 10,000 yuan into Dajinya's hand and said, Master Jin, is there a problem with getting all the materials we need ready through your channels as soon as possible? Dajinya nodded and took out paper and pen, saying, no problem, Hao, you tell me to remember. Wang Hao nodded and said, I need the best cinnabar, glutinous rice, ink douxian, child urine, born on a sunny day in a sunny year, rooster crow blood, black dog blood, black donkey hooves, blood dragon, which includes female tiankue, peachwood nails, and 5 emperor's coins, of different sizes. The key is that the 5 emperor's coins, Shenkeng and Shukeng, are not needed, as long as they are passed down from generation to generation. We also need to import engineering shovels, hiking ropes, outdoor hiking clothes, hiking boots, hiking backpacks, flashlights, emergency medicine and bandages, as well as some plastic-sealed braised beef products and alcohol. After Dajinya finished recording, he said, Howie, I don't have any major problems with anything else, but I can't guarantee that Tong Zi urine is from the extremely positive date. I will try my best to get what you said about the blood dragon. I can't guarantee that all the coins of the 5 emperors, big and small, will be passed down from generation to generation. As you know, it's difficult to distinguish them if they come from an old pit. Chapter 9. Starting from Niuxin Mountain, everything is gone. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. After listening to Dajinya's answer, Wang Hao understood and said, it's really difficult to find a child's urine on the date of extreme young. It's not even possible to use an ordinary birthday. The red dragon thing should be easy to obtain as long as you are willing to pay. As for distinguishing whether the 5 emperors' coins of different sizes are passed down, Lao Jin, you just need to put the copper coins in a bowl of dew on a sunny afternoon, and after 1 minute, the water will not change color, so it is guaranteed to be the passed down 5 emperors' coins. Upon hearing such a special secret technique, Dajinya immediately smiled with joy. Howie is truly a contemporary high-ranking official. He even has such a mysterious way of distinguishing himself. It's really hard to say. Old Hu was also impressed and couldn't help but nod in admiration. Only Wang Pangzi asked in confusion, Howie, I know what these engineering shovels and mountaineering suits are for, and I understand the emergency medicine and alcoholic beverages. But what are you doing with cinnabar or something? And what are the red dragon and the 5 emperors' coins? Are they used to ward off evil spirits? Wang Hao replied, you guessed right, Pang. These things are used to ward off evil spirits or to deal with zongzi. As for the specific usage, I'll tell you when I get everything. Then he said, if possible, Mr. Jin, it would be best to help me buy a few more specialized pig knives for slaughtering livestock, at least a few hundred of which have been slaughtered. This time, even Dajinya was confused and said, Howie, what are you doing with this? Wang Hao smiled and said, this is called the killing blade. In ancient times, the more people killed with weapons, the heavier the evil energy on the blade, which can avoid ghosts and evil spirits. Nowadays, killing people is illegal, so we have to retreat and seek to use the blade that slaughters livestock. A week later, the Jinya informed Wang Hao that all the supplies were ready, so the three of them came to his shop again that morning. Yo! I said, 3 gentlemen, you came early enough. I just opened the door. As he spoke, he beckoned the 3 of them to come into the house and sit down to drink water. In no time, the Jinya took out a bunch of things, such as cinnabar, glutinous rice, and so on. He wrapped them up in small packages, and separated the baby urine, rooster crow blood, and black dog blood into small bottles. Then he took out 2 black plastic bags and placed them on the table, saying, Howie, I finally got everything you wanted, Lao Jin. I lived up to my expectations. I couldn't find the urine of the Jiang boy, only ordinary ones. I only bought around 20 red dragon, and as you know, asking women to sell Tiankuei paper is not a good idea. I did my best. There are also the 5 emperors' coins that have been passed down from generation to generation. The big 5 emperors' coins collected less than 20 coins, barely enough to gather 3 sets, while the rest were duplicates. The little 5 emperors' coins collected more than 40 coins, but there were also many duplicates, only enough to gather 4 sets. After speaking, take 2 black material bags to Wang Hao. After inspecting the things, Wang Hao gave himself, Lao Hu, and the fat man each a set of 5 emperor coins of different sizes, and asked him to wear a red rope around his neck. Then he gave the last set of little 5 emperor's coins to the Jinya and said, Lao Jin, you often deal with Ming weapons. You should take this set with you for self-defense, and you can exchange it for the big 5 emperor's coins in the future. The Jinya smiled and took it out, then took out a handbag and took out 4-foot-long pig-killing knives wrapped in cloth. Howie, in the past week or so, I have traveled to all the slaughterhouses in the capital and only then have I obtained 4 pig knives that meet your requirements. Pointing to 2 knives, he said, these 2 are old knives that have been used by pig butchers for over a decade, and at least 2,000 livestock have been slaughtered. Then he pointed to the remaining 2 knives and said, these 2 are also old knives that have been used for 7 or 8 years. I heard they have slaughtered 700 or 800 livestock. Wang Hao looked carefully and found that although they were all ordinary pig-killing knives made of refined steel and had a very ordinary appearance, the dense and ominous aura emanating from the blade from time to time was definitely not fake. Finally, the Jinya whispered, Howie, I only got aluminum heat and super strong acid for the things you told me later, and there aren't many things that are expensive. I can't get anything else in a short time. All the supplies cost less than 8,000 yuan, and the remaining money will be enough for you, Mr. Hu, and Mr. Pang to buy daily necessities when they arrive in the county town over there. Wang Hao nodded in understanding and said, it's okay, these are already enough. We have taken all the things. We will depart tomorrow and talk about other things when we come back. Then he and Lao Hu went home with all their belongings to pack up. The next morning, Wang Hao and his companions changed into hiking clothes and boots, and carrying backpacks, boarded the train and headed straight to the northeast. As for the supplies prepared by the Jinya and the black and white TV that Lao Hu was interested in, they were all packed into Wang Hao's storage space. At that time, Hu Bayi and Wang Pangzi were both shocked, and Wang Hao used the most popular special function of the 1980s to explain the past to them. Wang Pangzi excitedly said, hey! With the special ability of Howie, we can bring supplies when we go and also pack antique artifacts when we come back. It's really convenient. On the way, I first took a train and then changed to a long-distance bus, and finally traveled to the nearest county town in Niuxin Mountain. Old Hu and Fatty followed Wang Hao's advice in the town and bought over 2,000 yuan worth of daily necessities for the villagers in Gangang camp. Only then did they hire 3 carriages to drive to Gangang camp. There's no way they brought too many things, the donkey cart in the original web drama definitely can't be pulled down. On the way, Old Hu and Fat Man continued to chat with the little accountant who came to pick them up from the village, and the smiles on their faces never disappeared. As soon as they entered the village, Wang Pangzi and Hu Bayi happily greeted the villagers loudly, while Wang Hao just smiled and looked at everything from the side. When Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty brought out the many gifts they had brought, they overjoyed the villagers in the village. After all, there was a shortage of resources in that era, let alone the remote gang camp. The old secretary warmly welcomed the three of them to a meal, and during the banquet, Wang Hao was introduced to the old secretary and the villagers. For a moment, the atmosphere at the dinner table was very harmonious. Just like the original plot, later Hu Bayi and Wang Fatty were chatting with the old secretary when they learned that all the antiques and artifacts in the village had been handed over to the government, and the young men in the village were also hired by the archaeological team to excavate Empress Dowager Zhao's ancient tomb. For a moment, Hu Bayi and Wang Pangzi were both dumbfounded. That afternoon, Wang Hao and the others gathered by the small river to smoke, and Hu Bayi said dejectedly, "Howie, I'm really sorry. I didn't expect us to make a fool of ourselves this time and let you spend so much money in vain." Wang Pangzi nodded in frustration on the side. "It's okay, there's no guarantee for this, and it's not something we can control," Wang Hao replied nonchalantly. Although Wang Hao did not blame them, Hu Bayi still gritted his teeth extremely hard. "Forget it, since we can't receive anything, let's go and see the Guangdong army fortress that the villagers in the village mentioned back then. I reckon there must be quite a few good things inside." "Old Hu, are you sure?" Wang Pangzi's eyes lit up instantly. Wang Hao also smiled and asked, "Old Hu, do you want to open up?" Hu Bayi made up his mind and said, "Anyway, you can't let Howie lose money. Besides, Fatty and I don't want to live the same life anymore." Wang Hao smiled and said, "Okay, let's prepare tonight and go to the Wild Man Gully tomorrow." Chapter 10 Warns Wang Pangzi to kill the wild boar with 5 fists. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The next morning, Wang Hao, Hu Bayi, and Wang Pangzi borrowed 3 horses from the village and set off with the equipment they had already prepared. As for the things that De Jinya prepared to restrain evil, they were also distributed among Hu Bayi and Hu Bayi, with 4 life-killing blades and pig-killing knives. Wang Fatty and Lao Hu each received 1. The 3 of them were riding horses and chatting and farting by the roadside. As soon as they left the village, they didn't walk much when they heard a burst of dog barking coming from behind. Wang Hao turned around and saw a young girl, aged 18 or 19, with short hair that matched her ears, riding a horse and quickly chasing after her. The noisy barks of the dogs were just a few hunting dogs running wildly under her horse. You don't have to guess that Wang Hao knows it all, this is undoubtedly Yingzi in the original work. As expected, when the girl with a hunting gun approached the 3 of them, she instantly stopped her horse and Wang Pangzi asked in confusion, "What's up, girl?" The girl looked at them and answered, "Brother Hu, Brother Pang, Brother Xiaohao, I am Yingzi, from the Orican tribe. The old secretary doesn't trust you, let me come to protect you." Wang Pangzi said incredulously, "Protect us. Just rely on your girl's film." Hu Bayi also asked jokingly, "Why am I Brother Hu, Fat Man is Fat Brother, and when I arrive at Howie, I become Little Hauga?" Yingzi replied disdainfully, "What's wrong with the girl? Just a few of you can't get out of this forest. Besides, there's no need for a man." Then he turned to Hu Bayi and said, "You and Panga are both over 10 years older than me, and Xiaohao is only a few years older than me. What's Xiaohao's name if I don't call him?" Upon hearing these words, Wang Hao burst out laughing, and Hu Bayi also smiled bitterly, saying, "So we're both older and discriminated against." Seeing that Wang Pangzi was still entangled, Wang Hao interrupted directly, "All right, Panga. Now that the young and strong people in the village have been hired, it would be great if the old secretary could let the young lady serve as our guide. Why are you nitpicking? Although both Lao Hu and I have good experience in wilderness survival, we don't know the exact route after all. It would be much more convenient for us to have Ingzi's help. After hearing this, Ingzi smiled and said, "It's still Xiao Hao who is sensible. You can rest assured that I will lead the way and ensure a smooth journey to the Wild Man Gully." In the following 4 or 5 days, under the leadership of Ingzi, Wang Hao and his companions went smoothly without any mistakes along the way. When they were camping and resting at noon that day, the three of them still talked about this matter. Wang Pangzi said angrily, "This little girl has been using us 3 brothers like grandsons these past few days. It's unlikely that this savage ditch will be so scary. It's all because of the people in the village who scared us." Seeing that he was going to make a vulgar remark again, Wang Hao glanced at Ingzi, who had not yet returned from catching his prey, and then said seriously, "Pang Gu, we are both brothers with good relationships, so I would like to advise you a few words. To be honest, if we don't have Ingzi as our guide along the way, we will encounter a lot of trouble, and the most important thing is not recognizing the way. It's best to change your personality in the future. Since you want to make a lot of money by going down to the grave and fighting, you should be down to earth and cautious in the future. Don't be impatient, otherwise it will not only cause trouble for your companions but also harm yourself. Besides, we'll make a lot of money in the future. You can't just be like this now, just boasting about someone without any depth, right? People who have big money and real skills don't need to boast, they show others how to do things. And once we go down to the grave for a fight, no matter how valuable an object you see, you can't just take it with you. We must make sure everyone is okay before we talk, you know." Hu Bayi also knew about Wang Pangzi's shortcomings, such as being good at face, fighting bravely, and loving wealth, so he agreed. Haoyi is right. Fatty guy, Haoyi's words are definitely heartfelt words. He's not a good friend or brother, he wouldn't even tell you. You should change your bad habits in the future. Seeing both of them saying this, I knew they wouldn't harm Wang Fatty, so I couldn't help but nod awkwardly. Okay. I have remembered everything you said, gentlemen. Don't worry, I will try my best to change it in the future. Then he said, "You two look at things, I'll go to the woods to make things easier." Hu Bayi nodded, asking him to be careful and not take it seriously at all. But Wang Hao knew what was about to happen, so he slowly followed behind Wang Fatty. As expected, Wang Pangzi quickly rushed towards the camp, holding up his pants and frantically calling for help. Although Hu Bayi and Ingzi also heard cries for help, they were too far away to make it for a while. However, Wang Hao was only a few tens of meters away and rushed to Wang Pangzi in just a few steps, then threw him behind a big tree. When he turned back to look at the wild boar chasing after Wang Fatty, he was surprised because in the web drama, there was only one wild boar chasing Wang Fatty, but now it has become 2, not small. At this moment, Wang Pangzi, who had rushed out from behind the tree, anxiously shouted, "Haoyi, run away. What are you doing standing with that idiot?" As soon as the words fell, a big wild boar rushed towards Wang Hao and he casually replied, "They don't deserve me to run away just because of them." After speaking, it's like a crazy barrage of cannon punches from the 5 elements fist. Bang! With a muffled sound, the big wild boar at the beginning was forced to stop by Wang Hao's punch, and was knocked unconscious on the forehead by the punch, almost unable to stand steady. Wang Hao didn't care about it anymore, turned around and dodged another charging wild boar. He hit it with a fierce and domineering half-step punch between its waist and abdomen. At the same time as a gruesome roar sounded, this wild boar, weighing nearly 300 pounds, was instantly blasted over 3 meters away and then fell to the ground bleeding profusely. At this moment, Hu Bayi, Ingzi, and the chubby man who was about to come out from behind the tree to help, all looked at Wang Hao with immortal eyes. There's no way, this operation is really amazing and terrifying. The most important thing is this the damage that a person can inflict? At the same time, Wang Hao ignored the big wild boar that was about to be killed and turned his head to rush towards the side of the wild boar that had just recovered from being beaten. The Luo-shaped fist and the 12-shaped fist hit the back of the wild boar's head, the tiger-shaped fist hit the back of its neck, and the final bear-shaped fist hit the wild boar's forehead directly. With a crisp, click sound, this big wild boar was stunned as if its skull had been shattered by Wang Hao and it had fallen to death. Then Wang Hao turned around and shouted, "These two wild boars are dead." Old Hu and Fat Brother came over to help carry them back and eat meat. P.S. During the new book period, there were various requests for collection, flowers, and 10 review votes. Thank you all, Yanzu brothers.